Javier Banos, candidate for City of Coral Gables Commission.
Thank
Welcome
you very
again.
much, Michael. Appreciate it.
And,
Wonderful to once again be here at Community News.
and over these last couple of months, I've got to know you a little bit better, right?
Thank you.
And it's really been a pleasure working with you. And I know that you are spontaneous and you know how to communicate with people. I want to remind folks that you're a lawyer.
Right.
Sorry, and a CPA. So that
Right.
sort of makes up for that.
No, it
Okay.
does. Look, my work has always been about looking at budgets, looking at numbers, making sure that we have a true understanding of what the residents are getting and what the citizens of Coral Gables are getting for their government, for their money. And that will be my pledge to actually go into, especially the budgetary process that will start if I'm elected commissioner over the next 3 or 4 months, to try to find efficiencies. I think I want to follow the lead of Commissioner Lago, I think, who will probably be Mayor Lago, and do an audit of our current, and not just audits, it's not financial audits. You can do an efficiency audit. You can figure out whether or not we're using the resources that we have in the best way possible. And I think one of the issues is staffing and where we put our resources. I think we may have way too much administrative staff and not enough folks actually doing the daily work that affects residents. And that has been a constant complaint as I go around and talk to folks.
So some of the folks saying we think it's too top heavy. Is that what they're saying?
First of all, the city tends to take a top down approach to a lot of the work, especially for the managerial staff. So there's it is a city manager mode of government. So the manager is the one that and the assistant city manager are the ones that administer the city. But what happens is the structure is too top heavy. Okay, it creates a bureaucracy that everyone gets into meetings, has an understanding of what they want to do, and then the implementations falls short because there's not enough staff to actually make it happen. So with permitting, it's a big issue when you talk to residents. And if you have a tall building with a significant amount of square footage that's been put in the city, so if they have a project, no problem. We have dedicated staff for that. That project's going to get all the permits, no big deal. It's a big money maker for the city. For little old me and every other resident who wants to put up a permit, there's bottleneck after bottleneck after bottleneck.
And we can talk about this thing. You've been around money, obviously, for a long time. You were
Right.
on the pension board in the city of South Miami years ago when you were a neighbor.
I was also in the city of Coral Gables.
And then you moved to Gables, and you're also on the pension board
Right.
there. So the professional builder, and we all live in a house or an apartment that a professional builder put up.
Right.
They know how to move their projects through. They understand They have to do this, so they get the next step, and then they get them approved. But the homeowner,
Right.
who's never done it before,
Right.
it's probably a very frustrating thing.
It is
for them, especially in the city of Coral Gables.
It is. Look, the pride of the city is its zoning code, and it's how strict it is, how it tries to preserve the quality of life and the architectural look of the city. And we just modified it to, I think in some ways that should have been modified to liberalize and increase the height on some of the commercial buildings. The hope, I think, by some, especially large developers, that this is going to bring more money into the city. The problem that you have, is that the money interest, are just there for the minute of that they're going to go ahead and build this structure. They're going to sell it off to new residents, and then they're going to move on to their new project, which is what developers do. The residents who are there who are going to suffer the traffic. The residents who are there today who are going to have to deal with the additional lack of space, who are going to have to deal with the larger structures coming in, who are going to have to deal with the city residents with higher taxes to pay for police, for staff, for firefighters to attend to those buildings. Those folks are not being considered. They're not being put into the equation.
Javier, I frequently hear George Merrick's name invoked.
Right.
Whether it's you hear it or you see it.
Right.
I don't hear like Larkins, I forget his first name, in South Miami,
right?
Or in Aventura, the folks that start. I don't ever hear that invoked. Why is it that the city is able, and how are they able to hold on to a vision that was created a long time ago? And that connects to sort of this permitting thing.
No, George Merrick was the founder of the city. It was his vision that was put forth and that of his father to build a city in sort of the Mediterranean style of architecture, City Beautiful, which is a movement itself. And because it was such a unique structure that essentially was to emulate southern Europe, southern Spain, southern Italy, you do have so he was the intellectual author of that perspective, which is why his name is invoked. He had somewhat of a checkered history in other areas, and I think if cities starting to assess some of that impact, but that is why his name is so brought up because as a founder, we're trying to go back to those roots. We're trying to preserve those roots, and that is the main goal. And what you see, for example, we have a Mediterranean ordinance, and that Mediterranean ordinance is meant to provide a additional benefits to any new builder who comes in if they actually build in that particular mode or structure. Problem is, it has been bastardized. It has been, usurped. The notion of Mediterranean architecture that goes on in Coral Gables today has nothing to do with the vision of Merrick. Has nothing to do with the original vision of Coral Gables. It has to do with big, 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 big. My opponents, Alex Puselo, Kirk Menendez, and PJ Mitchell, have received hundreds of thousands of dollars in developer contributions. I have received none. And it's because essentially all these developers want is they want a commissioner like Alex Puselo who doesn't even own property in Coral Gables, who's not even a taxpayer. It's a 27-year-old kid who's just trying to look for his next opportunity in life to go on to higher office, apparently. Or Mr. Menendez, who just wants to upzone his personal home, or PJ, who hasn't been to the commission in 6 years, and all of a sudden he decides he wants to appear. The developers want this type of sort of blanket candidate, doesn't have a vision, doesn't have an opinion, doesn't have anything. He's just going to do whatever they want because they're in it for themselves. And that is what you're going to get with my opponents. With me, I'm independently well off. I have my own personal businesses. I've made my money. I enjoy traveling. My family is doing well enough. So this is, for me, it's a calling. It's something that I've dedicated 15 years of my life to do, and I hope to continue to do it.
Certainly, and I don't live in Coral Gables, and I say we as voters want experienced people that are there that know how to handle the tug that happens. So you have the homeowners over here pulling this way,
right,
and you have the developers over here,
mm-hmm.
and then you got the NIMBYs not in my backyard over here,
right.
And then you have the preservationists that are pulling, and you have to have a certain level of maturity to be able to handle that. It sure is warm in here. All right.
No, you're doing fine.
So I think that part of this is for the voters to look at the candidates and say who is going to best represent us, which is the balance between the people that live there, the people that work there, right, the people that come into town, right? And we know that there's the most recent conversation is about the redo of the zoning map on Miracle Mile, and then in the craft corner,
and then the craft section. Look, they went up for vote on March 9th, first reading. I'll be going up to second reading on the 28th of March. I think the writing's on the wall. It will be a 4-1 vote on the growth of the mile. It will completely obliterate what we know to be the mile today.
So you think that this commission is going to vote to go along with the developers to do what?
They don't want a Commissioner Banos voting on this. They don't want they don't want Vince Lago as a mayor voting on this. They need Pat Keon's and Raul Valdez-Fowles' vote to pass this along, because otherwise the new commission, or the fear is that the new commission, if I'm elected and some other members on the other seat are elected, that they will truly be true representatives of the residents. And my concern, my true concern with this is what we know to be Miracle Mile will no longer exist. You will have a 3 to 4 story building, okay, with a large frontage, a large glass area, which can have a little more side.
You mean on both sides? Could be on both sides.
On both
sides,
okay.
From is that Ponce?
It's going to be on the mile itself, so it will be on Ponce. On Lejeune and 30, from Lejeune to Ponce to 37th to Douglas.
You're gonna have to change all those brochures.
Yes, they're gonna have to change all those things. Look, you're no longer gonna have the mile be what the mile is. It's a sad result of what was 3 years of work and truly about 4 months of debate. I think it was they're trying to ram it through. just before this particular election because they're deathly afraid that it's not going to go ahead
Who is
forward.
they are afraid?
I think the owners on the mile. I think there's a couple of large developers who would like to move this along because they want to bring larger stores to Miracle Mile. They want to make it look more like Brickell. And I don't think, Miracle Mile is not a destination that used to be 30 years ago, but certainly its local charm, and it's a very vibrant space. I mean, people say that it's dead. I completely disagree. You still have a lot of life on the mile. The way that we typically shop today, especially if you go for clothes or jewelry or things like that, some people do that online now. So the mile is just a reflection of those things. You're going to have a mismatch of restaurants, of small shops, of small spaces. And I think we're doing this at a point in time in which COVID and the cityscape and the streetscape that happened on the mile has completely affected the perspective.
How many sitting commissioners are up for re-election?
You got 3 seats up. So you have the mayor's seat and then 2 open seats that are being elected.
Are those people rerunning? The 3 people? One is not for sure.
Valdez Fale is not running, and then the 2 commissioners that are on each one of the 2 seats are running against each other for the mayor's seat. So you have Vince Lago, Pat Keon running for the mayor's seat, Valdez Fale leaving, and then seat 2 and seat 3
so these
are
folks quite potentially could change the zoning and then not even be there.
Correct.
Right? That's terrible.
That is terrible.
That's not a goodbye present. Right?
It is not. So you're going to have for sure 2 of the sitting members of the commission leaving. One of them will stay only because they're. That's not necessarily true. Jackson Rip Holmes could theoretically win the mayor's seat, but he's a perennial candidate. I'm not entirely sure he'll make it. But no judgment on Jackson. You will probably have either Vince Lago or Pat Keon be the mayor, okay? And then you have 6 candidates on the seat 2 and 4 candidates on seat 3. In my particular seat, I'm the only candidate who has self-funded a significant portion of his campaign. All of it has been, my opponents, if they ever win, will have a lot of favors to pay out to a lot of their contributors.
Well, and it is tough for people that are in positions of authority and power to be able to tell no over here and no over here and yes over here.
Course.
Let's talk about the crafts part of town, which is on Lejeune, right? Just south of Miracle Mile, more or less. How much?
Well, so the craft section goes from give or take the Miracle Mile itself. All the way down to Lejeune, to Brett Road. I'm sorry, and you have that entire strip, Douglas to Lejeune, Bird to Miracle Mile. That entire section, triangle, that is the southern part of that is a residential neighborhood. Okay, and it's being attacked from both ends. You have the Chops and Mary Park and all the building that's going up with the new residences there, attacking from the south, and you have these larger buildings coming from the north, in which you have a 14-story tower that's being proposed presently, that will eventually completely obliterate that particular neighborhood if we don't do anything.
14 story. The nearest building's height is what, and how far?
220 feet, if I'm not mistaken. Which is the Agave project that is going up now right in front of Ponce Circle. So
I understand that the developer is already buying a lot of the houses.
It's buying the houses, it's buying a lot of the adjacent property. And then what happened with the commission is one of my opponents, Kirk Menendez, his own personal home and that of his deceased mother, which is across the street from his own, is in that craft section on the northern end of the city. He was a big advocate for upzoning his own house, which maybe he already has it for sale. What will happen is a little family home like his will become a 4.5-story building in that area that will triple his value or quadruple the value.
I mean, the size of the lot,
which
is currently a single-family home, will turn into a 4-story building.
A 4-story building, and it will be the same thing all the way the entire area. And if you live on the other side of Lejeune, if you have the same small residential homes, except for
you're talking about on the west side,
on the western side, This is a further erosion of the neighborhood feel of that you have been accustomed to, the one you bought into as a resident. It's going to be more traffic. It's going to bring more sewage. It's going to bring more people to the downtown area. Now, that as a general rule, it may not be bad for the local businesses because we have tourism and we have folks coming in. Problem is, you need to have the proper infrastructure for that, okay? And we don't have the proper infrastructure.
Let's talk about the election. All right.
Sure.
So the election is coming up on April
13th.
April 13th. Early voting starts when?
It will be early voting will be for the 23rd of March. So
right around
the corner. So
right.
22nd, 23rd of March, most residents are going to receive their absentee ballots.
That's great. All right.
It's going to be 14,000 absentee voters. The largest block of voters has ever received absentee ballots in Coral Gables. And look, honestly, it is anybody's game today. Yeah. The thing nobody will tell you about this election is that everyone is deathly afraid because there's not a guarantee who's going to win.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's what. Sorry, we have 2 minutes left. All right. So why don't you tell us in 1 minute why somebody should vote for you?
Look, for me, public service has always been something that it's a calling and it's a pleasure to do for others. I've been serving residents of Coral Gables as well as other cities for about 15 years in their pension boards, in managing budgets, analyzing what I think is important for the residents and to manage their finances. I've always been an advocate of good, responsive government, and if we have to demand the government we want, and if we're gonna have the government we want, we have to participate and we have to be present. What you're going to get with Commissioner Banos is going to be someone who's going to keep the residents in mind after knocking over 6,000 doors in Coral Gables, who's going to listen, and who's going to make sure that every dollar is well spent, that we actually have the interests of the residents at heart, not the interests of any developers, and who's going to make sure that this city is organized and well put together for the future challenge of our generations, such as climate change and sea level rise.
Wow. So, folks, you heard it here. Javier Banos, a lawyer, a CPA, all right, a pension guy, right, a finance guy, and perhaps City of Coral Gables Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. We wish you lots of good luck. And, folks, go out and vote.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Tommy, thank you for
much.
your help for producing the show. Folks, we're out of here. Have a good day.